Welcome to the class. Once again, I'm Andrew Mead, and I'm excited to show you everything that Node.js can do. When I first started teaching Node on Udemy over 5 years ago, Node was already a super popular choice for new developers, and that hasn't changed. In the last 5 years, new features and functionality have been added to Node, making it more popular and mature as a tool being used by professional developers everywhere. Now, in this class, you are going to learn everything you need to become a professional Node.js developer, but before we get to that, in this video, there are 3 important things I want to cover. First up, we're going to talk about the course curriculum. We'll figure out how we're going to get from where we are now to where we want to be, which is a professional Node developer. Second up, we're going to talk about how you can get the most out of the class and the most out of our time together. And third, we'll talk about how you can get help if you need it. All right, let's jump right in and talk about the course curriculum. This course is broken into 4 major parts, and in each part, you'll end up building a complete Node.js application from scratch. So in part 1, you're going to build a note-taking application. In part 2, you'll build a weather application. In part 3, you'll build a task manager app. And finally, in part 4, you'll build a real-time chat app. Now, as we explore new features of Node.js and the ecosystem, we're going to be integrating everything we learn into one of those 4 projects. The goal here is not to explore Node.js features in isolation. The goal is to figure out how we can use all of these features together to create interesting and meaningful applications. So let's take a quick moment to break down the 4 apps we're going to build. The first app, the note-taking application, is how we're going to get started. So this one is going to be pretty basic as we explore the fundamentals. We have to figure out how we can do things like create our first Node app, use basic features from Node, and run the application for the first time. Now, along the way, we'll explore features from Node, like the ability to read and write from the file system, and we'll start to explore our very first third-party Node.js libraries. That brings us to part 2. In part 2, you're building the weather app, and that's a web application. So the user is going to be able to use and interact with your app from their browser. Now, to build this one, we have to explore a lot of interesting topics, like how we can create web servers with Node.js, how we can build out our own Node APIs, how we can launch our applications to a production server, and how our apps can communicate with third-party services, such as a third-party service that allows us to fetch real-time weather data for a given location. Now that brings us to the third app, and the third app is the biggest of all. This is the Task Manager app. The Task Manager app has all of the real-world features you'd expect. You'll learn how to set up authentication with an email and password. You'll learn how to set up database data storage with MongoDB and the very popular Mongoose library. We'll also explore other topics like file uploads, email sending, and more. Now that brings us to the 4th part. In part 4, you're going to build that real-time chat app. Here, we'll explore how we can use Socket.io and WebSockets to create real-time Node.js applications. The goal of the course is to give you the tools and real-world experience needed so you can go off and build useful and interesting applications once the class is over. So now you know what you're getting yourself into, and we're going to move on to part 2 of this video, where we're going to explore how you can get the most out of the class. This course was designed to be completely interactive, so to get the most value out of the class, you need to interact with it. Everything that I do on my machine is something that you should be doing on your machine as well. So as we explore a new feature of Node, we'll be writing some code together. We'll talk about what the feature is and how it works, then we'll run our program to see it in action. This is something that you should also be doing on your machine. Now, this is a little bit of monkey see, monkey do behavior where you're just following along, but that's okay. It's actually essential for exploring new features and figuring out how they work. Now, when it comes to building up your problem-solving experience, this monkey see, monkey do approach no longer works. That's why I've included over 100 unique challenges requiring you to solve problems on your own using what you've learned in the class. So I'll set you up with a problem, I'll give you some time to go off and solve it, then we'll come back together and work through a potential solution. So both of these things are essential. Follow along with what I'm doing on my machine and give the challenges an honest try. If you do both of those things, you're going to get to the end of the class, you'll have the tools and real-world experience necessary to go off and build Node applications on your own. All right, let's jump into part 3 of this video, which is the final part where we're going to talk about how you can get help if you need to. We're about to spend a lot of time together learning something new, and it's likely that at some point along the way, you're going to need a little help. Maybe you're running the application locally on your machine, but when you run it, you get a different result than what you're seeing me get in the video. Or maybe you run your app and it completely crashes, printing some sort of long, cryptic error message. Regardless of what's going wrong, the course Q&A is where you can go to get help. You can find a link to the Q&A below the video player for each and every lesson. There you can browse previously asked and answered questions, and you can likely find a solution to your problem right away. If not, you can always crack open a new question in the Q&A. All I ask is that you provide as much information as possible. So if you're running into a problem running your project, zip up your project code and include that with the question. If you're getting some sort of error message, take a screenshot and upload that with your question. The more information, the better. That's going to allow us to get you unstuck and back on track faster. Now, don't worry. Throughout the course, I am going to teach you how to debug your own applications and how to read those cryptic error messages, but the course Q&A is always there if you need it. All right, that's it for this video. Let's continue on with the rest of the class.